I'm Richard Sandoval, and welcome to the 7th Annual Women Business and Wellness event, an online experience produced by Hispanic Lifestyle. The goal of this event is to connect, inspire, and empower women of diverse backgrounds with resource information and professional insights. But before we get started, I want to thank our sponsors: Wells Fargo Bank, Synchrony, Union Bank, the Southwest Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and Bank of America.
What should the world expect from a bank? Perhaps a bank dedicated to meeting the challenge of change. A bank that honors the business environment and the natural environment with equal passion. Providing people and businesses the tools and insights they need to succeed. And offering people and communities the resources to flourish. A bank that recognizes that economies fluctuate, but values don't. And never forgetting, our only ambition is to help you fulfill yours.
Hello, my name is Gabrielle Ruiz, and I am an artist, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and a pretty great mom and fur mom.
Wow, pretty great.
Pretty great.
Please quantify the pretty great mom statement.
Pretty great.
I
mean, I'm figuring it out, but I'm pretty proud of myself at the end of the day that we're all, warm and fed and somehow maybe clean, not all the time. We're all alive. We're doing it.
I love it.
That's pretty good.
So I really appreciate you participating in our Women Business and Wellness Conference. We used to do this in person, but circumstances what they are. It's really kind of funny. 3 years later, I mean, the numbers are starting to go up again as far as COVID numbers. And so this just seems to be the best way to share the information and insights with everybody. I'm hoping, before we get into the nitty gritty, if you will talk us through a little bit of how you balance career, being an actress, being a singer, being a dancer, and a pretty terrific mom.
Well, Richard, I think a lot of lessons were learned, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, was just stopping in 2020. We were forced to. And there was time to look around. Excuse me. There was time to look around and assess how we're doing, and what matters and what is life without everything that we thought was known. And what we learned, what is also existing around us that is also wonderful. So I come from the Broadway world. I've performed on Broadway for 10 years, and a TV show, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, brought me to Los Angeles. Ended up being a permanent move for my husband and I. We were newlyweds at that point. And it was all about the next job. I think as a professional artist, a performer, the real job is always, what is the next job? So there's always looking into the future. There's always looking into what's next. And that comes with a lot of anxiety versus being present and enjoying where you are. So we were all forced to, or at least I was in 2020, forced to look around in the present and find the beauty in that around the chaos. And we had a miscarriage in 2019 that challenged me as a professional to slow down. And I remember feeling slow and nauseated in a huge audition and wondering, like, how am I going to stop? How am I going to stop to have a family? Because we want a family. And I didn't know that answer. And so when we started trying again in 2020, like in the fall, there was this beautiful opportunity for me not to feel like I had to do both. I had to, pursue acting as aggressively as I'm used to doing and pursue the next job. I was actually able to enjoy being pregnant and enjoy, even as lonely as it was, I was able to just do that and do some other artistic endeavors because What Are Friends For, my podcast, started. I had time for that. I think everyone has this story. Like they had time for other things that were never first. And the self tapes and some of those auditions, sure, they came around, but they didn't come. They were not like they are now in the end of 2022, where things are picking up again. So I was able to appreciate the stop, appreciate the other parts of my life that I was afraid that would hold me back, and the balance that I bring now. When, of course, now we're, Mercedes, my daughter, is a year and a half, and Philip and I, my husband, we would love to start trying again soon. And, Murphy's Law, when work begets work, things have picked up for me and we want to start trying again. And it's like, you know what? Let's do it. Let's roll the dice. Let's make great problems and let's keep trying. Don't let other things hold you back because you can do more than you realize. You can do and love many projects at the same time without putting pressure on them.
Well, that's one of my favorite sayings. I'm paraphrasing now, but life is what happens when you start to make plans. So, hey, congratulations. Thank you for sharing that story with us. And, I think I really admire people that don't sit around and wait for something else to happen. And we're getting to know each other right now, but you just don't seem like one of those people. Anybody that decides to go out and get some gear and start a podcast and do it. What is it about you? I know you're from Texas, goes to New York, and now you're here in California. So there is something entrepreneurial about you as well.
There is. My grandfather had a produce business in Texas. My dad worked for him as a salesman. So I think the salesmanship of that, in my blood, really does feed into being an artist because you do have to promote, brand yourself. You have to believe in yourself. Even when the result is not there, you're ready for it. And I feel like there's a lot of that excitement when it comes to what's next. There's also not just anxiety, but there's also excitement with that feeling to keep creating even when you don't know how it's going to land.
Okay, let me get a little geeky and inside for a minute here. I am a big fan of In the Heights, saw it on Broadway. What role did you play? And how was the experience?
It was my Broadway debut, so my experience was incredible. I was in the ensemble and I understudied Vanessa, Nina, and Carla, all the, I would say, young women roles. And I sometimes would be on for all 4 roles in the same week, depending on the weather, inside and outside of the theater. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I learned Vanessa first, and as the first principal I learned, and fun tidbit about that is I performed Vanessa without learning second act yet. There was no time, and I had to go on because of the way the roster fell that night. I was the last option of understudies, and I remember our dance captain, Michael Balderrama, said, "How much did I teach you of Vanessa?" And I said, "Well, we've only gotten through first act." He's like, "Okay, so you're going to go on tonight. So go get some dinner in between shows and let's talk." And he walked me through it on both sides of the stage per scene. And I describe that experience as walking around stage with my eyes closed because I had to trust everybody on that stage to make sure I wouldn't get hit or I would sing. And I remember knowing it specifically, but actually doing it with everyone around you. It's a totally different thing. And I'm very proud of that night.
So fast forward to Crazy Ex-Girlfriend,
yes.
getting the call. I want you to describe the call when you booked the job.
Yes, it was a recurring guest star at that point. In 2015, I was auditioning for it in New York, And when I had a callback on Skype with the two showrunners, Rachel Bloom and Ali Brosh-McKenna, the second callback after that, I was going camping with my husband and his family. He was my boyfriend then. And I remember them saying, you know what, we're going to take a few weeks. We're casting other people first. We'll call you in August. And that whole time waiting, I remember telling my husband, I was like, they're not going to call. They're not going to call. They're not going to call. The romance is over. You know, they're going to find someone in LA. I doubt it happens because it never happens, you know, quote unquote. And they did. They did call and said, can you come for a final callback to LA Friday? It was 4 days away. And I said, yes. I bought a one-way ticket. I auditioned for them in person. And I waited again until Monday when they called around 5 o'clock. I was waiting like, you know, a New Yorker in a new land of Los Angeles. I was waiting like at an outdoor mall, like Galleria, just kind of like not shopping, but just walking around, not knowing really anybody in Los Angeles. And I had like ice cream or frozen yogurt or something. And my agent called and said, you start next week. It's for 1, maybe 2 episodes. Congratulations. And the next call I made was trying to crash on someone's couch. Somebody that I knew in Los Angeles.
Wow.
And then I never left. I never left LA. And it was, you know, that quintessential classic story of about a one-way flight. And in season 2, I was bumped up to a series regular.
How cool is that?
It was pretty cool. Pretty good. Pretty good. I would say that's the theme. Pretty good.
Pretty good. And speaking of pretty good, you know, we're in the holiday season. I mean, this year has literally flown by, and I know when somebody reached out to me and told me about your new song, Twinkle Twinkle.
Yes.
I thought, am I ready for this? And then you think about the holidays and all that, but you've been in the process of you spent the last 2 years putting Twinkle Twinkle together. Work me through that process. And
sure.
Tell me the inspiration.
I spent 2 years talking about wanting to do it. And I have never.
In production.
I never have had this, you know, goal or coming to Hollywood to be a music artist, you know, and get a Grammy. And I don't say that because I don't think I can, but I love Hollywood for the television and the film side. However, once I started making friends here, I was doing this like side passion project of helping with Christmas concerts here in Los Angeles, and I directed them and I produced them, and I made friends there, and one of the volunteers always would write a poem for his moment, for like a number per se, like one of the concert's moments. And his poems were just so beautiful, and he wrote 4 of them for 4 different concerts. And another friend that we have in common is a music writer. And so Chen Xiang Tao, who wrote the poem Twinkle Twinkle, and 3 others, I asked him if I could have someone write songs with them. And they were so inspiring and so beautiful, and I wanted them to be immortal per se. And Charlie, Charlie Malcolm, who did the music and lyrics for Twinkle Twinkle, I am the person who took their both beautiful brains and brought us all together to make this single that we hope is a realized album in 2023.
Wow. I know later, hopefully all this works out, that we're going to be able to share not only the song, but the video. Yes. With our audience as well. So
yes, and Charlie learned quickly. Thank you. Charlie learned quickly that I work very fast and furious, just like, you know, not knowing second act of Vanessa and In the Heights. Like, we just go, baby. When it's time to go, you go. Dale gas, you know? And so when I remember texting him at the end of the summer, I'm like, man, we got to do that song. And he's like, I've had it ready. It's your turn. Like, you let me know when you can come over and let's figure it out. And it was first this huge musical theater ballad that you would hear like on Broadway style, and it just sounded so laborious. So we took it down to, you know, 4 keys down. We lowered it, we chilled it out, and we found the acoustic folk pop sensibility of Twinkle Twinkle that it is now. And we're very, very proud of it. So we found both Charlie and I found each other's styles that we want to again repeat with Chen Xiang's other poems. It's such a fun project.
Well, I'll tell you, I really enjoyed it. I listened to the song the other day on Apple Music. And
Thank you.
I'll list in the show notes where you can actually download it and support your effort as well.
Thank you. I'm learning to live in the light as part of the chorus. It's some of the lyrics, and just it's original, it's new, it's things that Chen and Charlie and I have in common of what we love in our life. And I'm learning to live in the light is my favorite lyric that I think everyone can relate to.
Okay, so it's not going to be Christmas all year long. Can we talk about your other projects?
Yes,
that you
let's do
have
it.
Coming? Yeah, I know you got the podcast. Do you have any other projects you feel comfortable telling us about?
Oh, yes. I am currently working on a film that I, of course, can't talk about. It's one of the hardest projects I've done yet for me as an actor, and preparing for it. Working in the desert in those conditions is pretty cool. It's a cool challenge, I would say. But right now, I am so proud to be part of the Star Trek family, Richard. I am a Vulcan on the animated series Star Trek Lower Decks on Paramount Plus. Live long and prosper.
Do you get to wear the ears?
I mean, it's an animation, so no, I'm just in a studio. And Mike McMahon, who you know from so many other wonderful animated series, Rick and Morty is one that he's biggest known for, but his comedy for Star Trek is just this love letter for all Trekkies, because there's so many like fun little golden eggs. They bring back, all the stories that, anyone that knows Star Trek will love Star Trek Lower Decks, because it brings out what you love, or the jokes that or things that you never understood in Deep Space Nine. They bring it all back, and I get to represent the Vulcan world on USS Cerritos. So the fact that they let me in, and the fans love T'Lyn is the character's name, I'm really proud of.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And again, how do we check this out? Where do we see this?
You can find it on Paramount Plus. We just finished our 3rd season, and it's just been revealed that T'Lyn has some more stories to tell. So it's exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Listen, I know we're up against the clock, and one of my favorite things to do is ask people like you to give advice to people like us. So give us some words of wisdom, maybe something somebody has said to you that you feel comfortable passing on with and sharing with everyone.
Yeah, I feel like one thing that changed my perspective on being like an artistic entrepreneur, because if you choose to do something that you're passionate about and want to make it a job or make it a successful career that can pay your bills, for me, Joe Rowan, who just retired as the artistic director of my college that I went to, Oklahoma City University, she always would say, and still to this day says, what we do is show business, not show begging. And the business side of what you're passionate about, I think, is a relatable struggle and challenge to find the balance of that. Because finding your own sense of worth is what will keep you going in the long run, because only you can confirm to yourself that what I'm doing is worth it. But I know someone will buy my product, but I know what I'm doing will change the world. But I know, it's like, what it is. And even if you're getting no thank yous, or ignored, or feeling like you're behind on your goals, to be like balanced in your like mental health with that is just really what is worth it. It's worth working on that, versus just always having this ever endless list of goals to achieve and only counting them as failures when they don't hit yet. So with that, I feel like it does take a toll on your body, because your body is the instrument that you're using to, achieve and to to take on the day every single day, even when they are failure days. I think your body is very important to take care of, and health is wealth, like what we were talking about before we started recording. Balancing that professional aspirations and getting it done and always saying yes to the opportunity, but also saying no, because you don't want to feel like you're doing it for everyone else, but you should do it for yourself.
I love it. Again, thank you so much for spending time with us this afternoon, and look forward to seeing and hearing the song Twinkle Twinkle some more.
Enjoy it and happy holidays. Thank you for having me for this event.
The pandemic, not having something else to kind of fall back on, pushed us to figure it out.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of so many communities.
We want to drive towards an inclusive recovery.
Wells Fargo Open Book Business to throw us a lifeline.
We as a company for a long time have understood the importance of helping businesses and nonprofits grow.
It made me feel good to know that people cared about my business.
At the beginning, it's not gonna be easy. You have to keep going.
That's what we want, to be able to create something we can one day step away and say, this is for you, for our kids.
Jackie, let's get some context in here quick, and that is, and it's okay for me to call you Jackie. Is that
Yes.
okay? Give me a little bit of your professional background. How does somebody get into wanting to be an economist?
Well, we're a bunch of nerds at heart. We love numbers and we love understanding the state of the country and the world and what drives our economy. Personally, I am from Florida, and then after school, I moved to DC, and I worked in a policy research organization there for a few years. And then most recently, I was at the Senate, where I served for 2 years. But I've now moved to Charlotte and joined Wells Fargo, and I love it so far.
Is that what most economists do? Spend a little time in government?
No. So in DC, there's a lot of different areas you can work in. There's politics and there's policy, and there's research, right? So I started out in policy research, and the think tank I was at was called the American Action Forum, and it very much specialized in economic effects of proposed policies. So that's really where I fell in love with econ, and decided to get my graduate degree at Johns Hopkins in applied economics. And then an opportunity opened up for me in the Senate at the Joint Economic Committee. So I was a senior economist there, and I got more into the policy analysis space while I was there, but also more direct interactions with senators and giving feedback on proposed legislation from an economic perspective. So the reason I wanted to come to Wells Fargo was because I wanted to broaden out more, focusing less on policy per se and more just the great nerdy macro stuff of what's going on and what can we expect to occur in the near future.
Well, you brought up the word nerdy and economics. So with that said, can you kind of tell me where we are and give me a little update on, I knew some off camera, we were talking about some new numbers came out today. So kind of give me the state of where we are today.
Yes. So the biggest question on people's minds, that was both when I was in DC and now that I've moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, is, are we in a recession? When will we be in a recession? What is a recession? So why don't I start there? A recession is a broad decline in economic activity, kind of across all sectors of the economy. So we'd expect to see production declines, declines in investment, which we are seeing already, namely in the residential space and then also commercial real estate. So these are things really sensitive to what the Federal Reserve's doing, raising interest rates and so trying to cool the housing market. But then we'd also expect to see declines in consumer consumption spending, which to this point, consumers have proven remarkably resilient. We mentioned off camera that, we just had Black Friday. It was a record year for Black Friday e-commerce sales. So the consumer component of the economy is hanging on strong. And then lastly, we'd expect to see some sort of labor market softening. So what that would mean is a rise in unemployment, a slowing in employment growth. You'd expect to see fewer and fewer job openings come available each month. You'd expect to see some layoffs, just a general weakening in the demand for labor. which, while we're seeing some very early signs, demand for labor is still incredibly strong, and wage growth is still pretty strong. So we haven't seen a labor market softening yet, and we haven't seen the softening on the consumer side yet.
But only a few months ago, I was hearing trends of we can't staff up enough. So really, where are we? Is there a balancing going to happen in the next few months?
It's a both and situation right now. So anecdotally, according to surveys, businesses are still having problems finding workers, especially small businesses. And that's one of the parts of a recession that do disproportionately affect small businesses. At the same time, you do still have relatively solid job growth. So it's not going to happen all at once, but you do need all of these components to kind of fall together in order to meet a broad-based recession like we would expect.
Should we start preparing for a recession? And if so, do you have some tips, some insights, if you will, how we should manage our money and prepare for a recession?
So here's what I can tell you. Wells Fargo, we do forecast a recession next year. The good news is it'll be short, so about 3 quarters long from the third quarter of 2023 through the first quarter of 2024, and it will be relatively mild. So what we are forecasting is about a 1.5% decline in real GDP. So that's the inflation adjusted value of all goods and services produced in the economy during this next recession. And to compare, to the Great Recession, we saw about a 4% decline then. And if you look at all of the recessions, post World War II, on average, the decline is about 2.75%. So this upcoming recession that we're forecasting, that we're predicting, will be relatively mild and short. And the reason it is going to come about is because we don't expect this consumer strength to hang on forever. I mean, real incomes have been falling and they will continue to fall, but consumers have been able to keep up the pace of spending, largely because of the accumulation of excess savings that occurred during the pandemic. By our estimates, excess savings will, run out by the end of next year. Consumers have also started putting more money on credit cards, and the value of revolving consumer credit has gone up quite a bit. But as interest rates continue to go up, that's going to increase those borrowing costs a lot more. So we're expecting consumption starting now to slow moving forward, so still growth, but slower, and then to start declining in Q3 of 2023, but then start growing again as of Q2 of 2024.
Are we preparing for this is our new reality where a couple of tacos and some flautas are $32? Are we going to go back to more reasonable prices, or what we perceive are reasonable prices?
So I would say that your experience is, you're not alone in your experience. People across the country are dealing with these rapidly rising prices, for food, for housing, and they're forced with these choices. Do I continue my normal pattern of consumption? Do I maybe switch down to something less expensive? So my parents have recently started going to a discount grocery store because they can't afford Publix anymore. And I'm sure they're not alone. High inflation is definitely the largest problem facing our nation, and it is the reason we are expecting a downturn, but we don't expect it to last forever. So as the Fed continues to raise interest rates and try to dampen that demand in order to bring prices down, we're looking for, PCE inflation, which is what the Fed looks to when determining what it's going to do in the world of monetary policy, to end 2024 at about 2.5%. Now that's still elevated relative to historical standards, but it's nowhere near what we're seeing right now. So inflation, while it's a challenge, we don't expect this crazy high level of inflation to be here forever.
So as a business owner trying to, of course, I need to grow my business, I need to sustain my business, pricing, adjustments, inflation. Can you give me some insights on what I might do to strategize to make it through this next period?
I think what I would say, obviously I'm not a business owner, I'm just an economist looking at the macro picture. What I would say is expect a slowdown in demand, expect a slowdown in consumers coming and purchasing your products. But, like I said before, it'll be a relatively mild and relatively short downturn in spending that we experience. So for the best you can, plan for a temporary downturn, but it won't last forever, and it won't be nearly anything comparable to the Great Recession in 08 and 09.
Well, that's good news. Of course, numbers change on a daily basis, don't they?
Well, sure.
One of the other things that we need to talk about is I'm in Southern California and housing is at a premium. Can you kind of give me some insights of where we are relative to the housing market?
Yeah, so out of all of the sectors of the economy, the one thing I am absolutely sure about is that the housing market is in recession. For month after month now, we've seen declines in new housing construction, in new home sales and existing home sales. At the same time, housing prices are still elevated far above their pre-pandemic levels, and mortgage rates are high, so that affordability is becoming a real issue. And during this recession, we do expect this affordability problem to, slow demand for housing, and we do expect housing prices to fall. So we forecast about 5% housing price declines next year. Now, that's nowhere near what happened during the Great Recession. And the reason why is because supply is so low now. So we have, the last I checked, mortgage rates were at 6.6%. That's incredibly far above historical averages, recent historical averages. And 85% of current homeowners have a mortgage rate less than 5%. So people are very reluctant to sell their homes and give up their relatively lower mortgage rate for a more expensive financing cost. At the same time, while we expect demand to slow, we don't expect it to completely plummet, because there's this contingency of prospective first-time home buyers kind of waiting at the sidelines for mortgage rates to fall and jump in and buy what they hope will be a cheaper home for their first time. So because of that, we do expect the housing market to continue to decline for some time while the Fed continues its monetary tightening.
I want to go a little bit to another topic, and that is other industries. We mentioned housing. Are there other industries right now that are overperforming or underperforming, and might have some insights on?
So I will say another very interest rate sensitive sector is the technology sector. And that's why, you may have seen reports of these huge layoffs for tech companies, and that's, kind of to be expected. In terms of who is performing well, it's the retail sector. The consumers are hanging on so strong. As long as that continues, retail will continue to be in a good position. But like I've said previously, that will only last for so long, and consumers can only continue to add to their debt for so long and continue to spend their excess savings for so long before there will need to be a change in behavior.
Again, being a small business owner, the complexity of how government and loans and building a business and forecasts and all that, one of the things I have seen a lot on is the infrastructure bill and how that may impact the economy. I mean, again, we have old bridges. Heck, we're in Southern California. We have water systems that are well over 100 years old that need to be redone. Can you talk a little bit about, that's why I'm trying to understand why there's going to be a recession when you see a large investment in our infrastructure?
Yeah, so the bipartisan infrastructure bill, that is about $400 billion of government money being transferred to, infrastructure projects. The thing you have to remember about government spending, though, is that these bills take time to be spent. So the Congressional Budget Office estimates that this $400 billion will take about 10 years to be distributed throughout the economy. And I believe by the end of next year, they estimate only $50 billion being spent. So that's the first thing to know. The second thing I would emphasize is that we are not forecasting a recession because of infrastructure necessarily. The reason why we really believe the United States is going to enter a downturn is because of high inflation, just pushing people over the edge, pushing consumers to a point where they pull back in spending, the high financing costs really hurting businesses and hurting investors who would otherwise, create new projects, but the costs are just too high. These things can't be solved with infrastructure specific spending.
Jackie, for many regions in the world, the pandemic in COVID-19 is still a real thing. It's really affecting people. We read every day about China. And with that said, our supply chain, I know we haven't talked about that yet, but is the supply chain also going to affect our economy?
Well, the supply chain issues was a huge reason for a lot of the high inflation that we've experienced up to this point. There was this imbalance between high demand on the U.S. consumer side and a low supply, from the world. We live in such an economically integrated global economy. It really presented a lot of challenges. And you mentioned China. China is still of high concern, especially given, some of their COVID lockdown policies potentially affecting global trade and China's energy consumption, which has implications for global energy prices and gas prices. So that is definitely something we're watching and something to be cognizant of. But on the supply chain side, I can give some good news. We have been watching the status of supply chains, and there's trackers of the number of ships waiting outside the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. At one point last year, it was over 100 ships. The last I checked, there was no ships. So supply chain pressures have certainly eased quite a bit, and that has helped to bring down goods inflation specifically. However, we're still facing, challenges in services inflation and core services inflation, and energy inflation could prove to be a challenge in the future, depending on global markets.
Well, we're going to take another stab at this, Jackie, but I want to thank you once again for spending some time with us this afternoon. And I would like you to share your final thoughts and wrap it up for our segment.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun. I would say my final thoughts is that, in 2023, we do expect a downturn, but more than anything, it's a correction from this huge run up in demand that occurred following the pandemic, confronted with the supply challenges that really stoked record high inflation for the United States out of historical character for us. So we will need to suffer some short-term pain as the economy corrects itself. But after that, I hope that it just sets us up for long-term growth as we expect the economy to start growing again in early 2024.
Hello, my name is Tiffany Ente. I'm the President and CEO of the Southwest Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and we serve the community here in San Bernardino County, Riverside County, and San Gabriel Valley. The focus of the Southwest Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in 2023 are three pillars of focus. The first is the entertainment industry, the second will be tourism, and the third is going to be innovation in technology. And those are important areas of focus for us because, as we know, everyone is going to work differently. People are rethinking what their priorities are. And so the Southwest Hispanic Chamber of Commerce wants to be a part of that movement, and we want to be a different chamber. In that meaning, we want to be engaging and accessible in a different way for those who are looking at innovative ways to expand their small business. Yes, I've been working indirectly with the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for over 8 years now. Currently, I was doing business development as a business advisor through the SBDC, through the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and I'm very passionate about that. And the reason is that we're giving hands-on, tangible tools to small businesses so that they can expand, whether it be through human resources, which is my area of expertise. I've been in human resources for over 17 years, and also financial statements, budgets. How do you look at expanding through development? How do you develop your own team? How do you look at your business and determine where you are and how you can grow, and also utilize resources, which the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce has been fantastic at doing. And we will also be tapping into those resources to expand that here in those regions. In New York City, where I lived for about 14 years, I worked in corporate finance with a focus of human resources. I went to school there. And then I started my own consulting firm. So I worked on booking and management for musicians. So I think what we are trying to build with the Southwest Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and Entertainment falls in my purview, and have a lot of experience there in doing tours, again, doing booking. And then I switched over more to the nonprofit side, and I was an executive director for a nonprofit organization in Utah, out of all places, with a great experience in Salt Lake City. And we focused on building and connecting the diverse communities there with resources that were already in place. So moving to President and CEO of the Southwest Hispanic Chamber of Commerce was an easy transition, because one of the biggest things is we want to engage, have tangible tools, and also build small businesses and have a voice for the community here. We really are trying to build our membership base, and the importance of that is to interact and be able to offer the tools that we have and also the resources. So please visit our website, and you can also contact us through our phone number. But we'll be hosting events throughout the year. We're going to have a launch in January. We're also going to be aligning with the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and their events, other chambers that are in the area, but we will be working legislatively. We'll be having larger events later in the year. So please, again, visit our website, because you'll be able to find out all of the activities that we're doing and ways that you can engage with us.
Hello, my name is Helena Salas. I am a small business sales manager for Union Bank. I currently have a team of small business relationship managers that cover the Los Angeles and the Northern California markets. Been with Union Bank for about almost 21 years now in various positions, but I found a true home and love in all things small business about 5 years ago. When we profile a business and we're taking a look at, what they're trying to accomplish, the knowledge base that we've been able to give, specifically even our small business bankers here at Union Bank, is mainly being able to review financials, being able to have those types of conversations, having those in-depth, understanding the inner workings of the business itself, and then at that point bringing in various partners if that need becomes available. So one of the big things that we see in our particular small business space is a lot of first-time buyers when they want to buy their first commercial building. So when it comes to owner-occupied commercial real estate, it's one of those unknowns. And what I equate it to is like when you have a first-time home buyer, right? There's so many unknowns, and they think, okay, can I make this work? Can I not make this work? And it becomes this this dream that's very far out. When in reality, if they sit down with a mortgage consultant and they have that conversation, they know, okay, maybe there's FHA available, or maybe there's various conventional products that they can go with. Those same type of conversations happen in the business world, especially with commercial real estate, because I think there are more unknowns to business owners when it comes to, is that a reality for me? So I think one of those situations that we see most often is can that be a reality? What is it going to take? So having those educated conversations with our clients, with our business owners, letting them know, okay, this might be a pipe dream, maybe 12 to 24 months to 36 months down the road. We have to start planning now. But there are avenues that we can take through the SBA. We also have conventional financing options. And then one of the things that I've taken a passion to is our business diversity lending program, where we are able to have expanded guidelines for our veteran-owned, female-owned, and minority-owned businesses that produce, maybe a lower down payment or an easier path to get into that particular property. So those same conversations that we have with consumers with buying their first home is we'll have those same types of conversations with business owners about potentially buying their first building. I think our business diversity lending program, definitely plays into that very nicely. And it's nice to be able to give an option. So, of course, being a female and being a minority, touching on two very important parts for that particular lending program, of course, hits very close to home. But I think for female business owners is that what I see is a lot of passion in their businesses. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears in those businesses. A lot of times, they're building their own networks too, being a part of even like the Latino Women's Business Owners Association and things of that nature, where they can build their own networks amongst other females that have kind of led the path and have been down that road before and can give guidance and things like that. So I think just how we were kind of talking about building your own squad of people, of trusted advisors, but they also can find other Latina or business owners, female business owners in general, to give guidance from that have already kind of been down that road, and to be able to use those same type of resources that they can do as well. So I think it's definitely a challenge, but also a plus for them. We're optimistic going into 2023. I think 2022 felt like we were just coming out of the pandemic. We were just getting back to normal. For all intents and purposes, it feels like things are somewhat normal again. You go and you see people going to concerts again and going to the theater and amusement parks and things of that nature. So we're really seeing things recover on that end, which hurt our restaurant type businesses and our entertainment type businesses when we were going through that transition. But I think that there's always room for growth. I think we have an optimistic outlook for our manufacturing segments, for our retail segments, even though shoppers are a little bit more cautious, given the current rise in inflation, things like that. I think it's definitely still going to be a busy holiday season. I don't see anybody letting their foot off the pedal in that regard. I think people are just a little bit more conscious on how they're spending. But manufacturing is always seems to be on the up and up, and we're having a lot of conversations with our manufacturing companies, and then our professional services as well. So they're almost what we call recession proof, where you always need to have them around. So I think overall the outlook for 2023 is we're hoping and that things will remain positive. I feel empowered as a female, as a professional. I feel accomplished in what I've been able to do here at Union Bank, but I know that it was because there was a lot of females before me that paved the way. My direct manager is also female. She is also a minority. I've been able to see, especially within the Union Bank organization, strong female leadership out of all the years that I've been here. So I think that's the one takeaway would be that find your mentors. Find your group, find your trusted squad, talk to them regularly, say your goals out loud, and really the sky's the limit.
Hi, my name is Kat Shepard, and I am a professional trainer and entrepreneur. But one of the things I love that I do that just floats my boat and makes me happy is I serve as a SCORE, Southern California and Hawaii District Director. I'm also the Western Region Ambassador, DEI Ambassador. I joined SCORE in May of 2016. I also teach at the University of California Extension of Riverside.
I want to ask you so many questions, but what started with your passion for business? Do you come from a background? Did your family own a business? How did you catch this entrepreneurship, entrepreneur bug, if you will?
The thought of entrepreneurship started at a young age. I remember when I used to go buy candy, we used to have to take a path in LA to get to the local market. And I remember going to that market and thinking, if I cut them off at the pass and sell candy, I'll beat them right away. I think growing up in a challenging environment caused me to think entrepreneurial. And I would always think about what I could do and how I could be successful. And looking at different ways and different jobs, being in the military, I thought, I could do something that would be really easy, and that is start a business. Well, it wasn't. It was challenging, but I love business. I think necessity is the mother of invention, and I think hard knocks caused that to happen.
I've known about SCORE for a long time, but for those who don't, can you tell me about SCORE and the services they provide?
SCORE provides two major services, mentoring and workshops. We provide mentoring at no cost, no matter how many times you're mentored, and we mentor you for the life of your business. We have nationwide 11,000 mentors, and they are there to help you at any phase of your business. We do workshops. That's the other major thing we do is workshops. And we have workshops going on nationwide. There are local workshops in person, but there's several Zoom workshops nationwide that you can attend. So you can log on, and most of them are no cost. There are some at a nominal cost of less than $20. And you'll love to attend those workshops. Very engaging.
I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm really close on the edge of like, okay, I have a client, they have a budget, I have a restaurant. How much should I charge for the food? Is that the type of mentoring, some advice, somebody that you could bounce ideas off of that SCORE offers?
Pricing is a really, you have to really think about it. When Starbucks started, somebody probably laughed at them because what did coffee start costing when Starbucks thought about it? They probably were selling coffee for dirt cheap, and somebody says, I'm going to sell venti. First of all, I still haven't got that, by the way, what the sizes are, right? I'm still a large, medium, small, but they have a whole different, I don't drink coffee. But think about the cost factor. Somebody said, I'm going to sell coffee. I'm going to put chocolate in it. I'm going to put whipped cream on it, and I'm going to sell it for an enormous price. And somebody probably laugh at them, but they're selling it. So when there's a demand, or if you create the demand that's there, it's different. The other thing you think about is competitive analysis. It is really important to do a competitive analysis, but that doesn't mean, just like Starbucks, you need to sell what everybody else is selling. So it's all about need and demand. It's all about the need and the demand, what's out there. So in the recession, let's think about the pandemic. Let's go back a little bit. Not that long ago, we had a pandemic. People had to definitely take a shift and pivot. That's the key word. During this time that may come, may not, we hope it doesn't, right? But you have to think about pivot strategies. It's not just about pricing. It's about adapting to the environment and making your product service available. So again, you're going to have to do a competitive analysis. Doesn't mean you need to be cheaper, but you need to be able to supply what people need, and the pricing will come with that. So it doesn't mean you need to discount your price, but you may need to adjust your product offering, and that may adjust your pricing also.
A follow-up to that is, what kinds of questions do you find more often than not are being asked by SCORE counselors?
The biggest area is marketing. People want to figure out how to reach their client. A lot of people know how to make the best chocolate cake. They know how to make the best small, tiny house. They know how to make, they create their book. They want to sell their book. But what they don't understand is how to market. So they may have the talent, the skill, the craft, and they know how to do it. They may even buy a franchise. I've seen people buy franchises and get that free 2 weeks of training with the franchise after they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars buying the franchise and building out a business. But if you build it, will they come? That's the question. If you build it, will they come? You have to really get the attention of your target audience. So most people come here, and after they build it, they've been struggling and they've been going in business. Sometimes they say they're in business 5 years, but they don't have the clientele. They don't have the traffic. So marketing is a huge animal. It's so many different ways that you can market. There's so many different things you can do. Think about social media. Think about retail marketing. Thinking about having people sell your product service. There's through partnerships. There's so many different ways to get to that. And most people don't know how to craft that marketing message or develop that marketing strategy.
What advice do you give to women entrepreneurs? Are they in a special category by themselves? But you're a woman, you're an entrepreneur. What advice are you giving to your colleagues and your friends that has been useful in your business?
But because we're responsible for so many things that other people are not responsible for, and also we're not funded as much as other businesses are. We're funded less and compensated less than other our counterparts are. So it's challenging in the business world. It's challenging. What I say, one thing about women though, we are resilient. We will run those businesses very effectively on the shoestring budgets we're allowed to do. And some women are just crushing it. So what I say to women is do it, go for it, and don't give up, because it is also statistically proven that we actually will work really hard and do really great at businesses that we are running. So I say go for it.
Finally, how do we get a hold of you to get more information regarding SCORE? I'm sure I'm going to put this information in the show notes.
Well, we can be reached at Inland Empire SCORE. If you go to our website, it's inlandempirescore.org. And if you go to inlandempirescore.org, you'll get to our screen here. Now, if you want to find a mentor, just click on Find a Mentor. And from there, you have two options that you can actually choose from. One is you can browse the mentor profiles. And if you do that, you can browse the mentor profiles and you can actually search to find the mentor you want. So you can actually search within this environment and specify your communication method, your language, your expertise that you want to communicate with or connect with. You can choose the industry that you want the expertise of our mentor to have. You can even type in keywords and search. And once you do that, you will find, you can search locally by just choosing Inland Empire and your results will just go locally. Or you can actually take that checkbox off or leave it off and you'll be able to search nationally to find the different mentors we have. The other thing you can do is you can click on Take a Workshop at the top, and there's several workshops nationally and locally. So if you want to show the local workshops here, you can click this checkbox. Other than that, we have several workshops that are available from your own home or office to actually view.
I love it. Gosh, that is so easy. Again, Kat, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all the effort you put in to advising businesses and sharing your passion and your knowledge with entrepreneurs.
It's no problem at all. I love it. Thank you for all you do, Richard. I appreciate everything you do and having this event every year. I just love it. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Carolina Banye, and I work for BBSI. I am a business developer. I work for this company for 10 years, so I like what we do. And I started doing payroll for this company, and then I moved into an HR consultant position, and then as a leader. And then since I like what we do and how we help small businesses understand the nuances of HR risk and payroll, I decided that I could speak of it because I lived in the guts of the operation. But prior to that, I worked for the state of California under their payroll department. And I learned wonderful things about employment and unions. And if I work my way back, I did staffing and benefits and garnishments. And so it's sort of like, I sort of like fell into this part of the industry that helps businesses. And with that in mind, I have found myself in living the pains and anxieties of small business owners. So I've done it now for many years, but most recently for 10 years with BBSI. And I have had the pleasure of meeting the most incredible people. Business owners as a whole are a totally new breed. They definitely have some tweaked on their DNA that makes them be courageous, take risks, make money out of trash, take on the most incredible challenges all on their own. And many of them go to bed at night thinking about their business. They become the parent of their employees. They're worried about that as well as they make decisions. And one of the things that happens to business owners is that they might know how to make that particular widget per se, but there are so many nuances of doing business, particularly in this wonderful place of California, that makes it so difficult to do this on your own. So as a part of,
with that said, not to cut you off, but you're right. We're a crazy bunch, that's for sure. I know that there was a bunch of new laws in 2022, but you're here today to talk a little bit about the new laws and what we as small business owners can expect in 2023.
Yes, so there are trends on the employment and new laws that will change the way we do business. One of the most interesting ones for me, particularly being a woman, and I work closely with the board, the Inland Empire Latina Business Women. And one of the things that we do is we promote businesses that are female owned. And in the industry overall, pay equity for females has always been sort of like the big elephant in the room. We know that overall females get paid less than males. And so there is a new law called the pay equity law. And what is really asking employers is before in 2021, I believe, the law first started by saying, look, if you're going to hire employees, when you're interviewing them, do not ask them how much they're making so that you can make the next offer. Instead, you have to be prepared to have a pay scale. And if that participant, that applicant is asking you how much does that particular position pays, then be ready to give it. Well, now the law is saying, not only do I want you to have that pay scale, but I also want you, business, to have a pay scale in your job posting. There are states like Colorado that are already requesting it. So for those businesses that do virtual work and they're hiring talent outside of the state, you also have to be mindful of what that law is in other states. And it's going to start peppering the union, the United States overall. But in California, starting January 1st, 2023, that is a very important law because now employers are going to have to put the pay range in the job description.
That's a lot of work for a small business, especially if you only have a few employees. Do you have some tips, if you will, on really how, as a small business owner, I should develop that scale? Do I currently, how much time should I spend on this? I mean, I'm paying somebody else. I may factor in a wage increase to them, but give me some tips, if you will, of how I would set my business's pay scale.
So the pay scale is a really simple thing. It shouldn't be too complicated, but technically run a census of your employees, sort them by the job type that they make, regardless of sex and how long they've been there, and preferably on an Excel spreadsheet, right? Figure out who's the top wage earner, who's the bottom wage earner, and see if that pay scale really is where you want, or that's where your pay scale is at, in essence. But
and do you also factor in benefits if you're some are required to pay health insurance as well too? So all those components go into this calculation as well. Maybe some retirement, health benefits. What are the components?
You could, yeah. So the pay transparency is exclusively for hourly wage or salary wage. However, when it comes to negotiations, you do have to know what those job types have in addition to, because there are companies that will have employees that perhaps the floor employees don't get the health benefits, but the managers do. So do have that as part of the negotiation. But as far as pay scale on its own, a census should give us an idea. Now, the other thing that businesses have to make a decision on is, do they want to lag in the market, be in the middle of the market, or lead the market? And that will also give them a range of where they want to be, whether there's pay scale. And let's make it simple. If you pay $2 for the same job and you have an employee that makes $3 per hour, these are simple numbers, and you have like a staggering one that's out there somewhere that makes $1 an hour, your pay scale is 1 to 3. However, the competition is paying 4. Then you can see if in your budget, the next one that comes along is 4 and 10 cents per se. And that might be your new pay scale for this coming year. Now you have to have it ready, because if you're hiring an employee and an applicant requests that, you have to be able to provide it. And it just has to be a simple white piece of paper with your pay scale for that particular position between the beginner range and the expert range.
We talked about wages. Are there any other kinds of concerns that we need to have to put into our HR book, so to speak, coming up in 2023?
Yes, we have. So if anybody has heard about this law called AB5 or the independent contractor, Uber and Lyft were all over that. So technically, small businesses a lot of time will hire an individual to come and do jobs that are probably very in tune with their business line, what they're doing. If they're a cake makers, what they make is they bake cakes per se, and they hire a plumber to come in and plug this thing. That's definitely an independent contractor. You're not telling them what to do, what tools to use, when to show up, and what to charge you, right? That's a true independent contractor. But let's say you're a great baker and you can make amazing cakes, but you're very terrible at the decorating of the cake. And you decide to hire an independent contractor to come and decorate your cakes. AB5 says that you have to pass 3 tests. One is, does that person that you're hiring to do something at your business has independence as far as making decisions? Are they autonomous? The third one is, do they do business with other businesses? And the second one, which is the most important, is, are they doing something that is very tied with your business? This technically should be your employee. So in this case, if that person that I hired to come and decorate my cake, since my business is truly cake making, the decorator, even if they decorate for a bunch of other bakeries, technically would qualify as my employee. So misclassification is incredibly important. It's going to continue to be a topic of conversation. The federal government is trying to also work on independent contractor and misclassification rules. AB5 is very strong here in the state of California. It has been fought by the trucking companies for years. And finally, we've lost the battle. I add myself to that because I have a bunch of trucking businesses that consult with us. And now they have all these trucking companies or independent contractors that don't qualify but to be employees. So there are a lot of nuances to that, and that is a thing that will continue to pepper our employment law and practices moving forward.
Okay, so we talked salaries, we talked independent contractors. Really, is there more for 2023?
There's so much more, but I'll tell you the one that really is going to resonate. Let's talk about CBD oil, THC, marijuana in the workplace. So the federal government says that, you can exclude someone who does not pass a drug test if you have a drug test prior to hiring someone, right? And there are certain things that you don't need to allow for purposes of safety and risk. Employers have the right to not allow someone who can legally drink themselves to sleep last night. They need to be able to work the next morning and be safe in the workplace, right? So when it comes to marijuana, who has been passed as a recreational and legal substance, the federal government does not yet acknowledges as that. So in the state of California, if you test positive for marijuana, maybe post-accident or pre-employment testing, employers have the right to say we will not offer you the job, or you were under the influence. One of the things that has challenged is being challenged, and now it's going to come into effect January 1st, is that we don't have sophisticated testing to say that someone who ingested marijuana via smoking it or eating it is truly under the influence when the test is made, versus when you get a test for alcohol, it's still present in your bloodstream. They can say you have a certain percentage, you're probably positive. Or cocaine, methamphetamines, you name it. There's a bunch of cocktails out there that people explore with. So in this coming year, you cannot discriminate if an employee tests positive on a pre-employment test for a job for marijuana. Now, that makes it, they excluded construction companies. Wow, why not, right? Those guys climb on machines, they dig holes, they could be, in the risk all the time. Trucking companies, transportation, you don't want someone who could possibly by 1% be in any way under the influence. But what that does to employment is that now when you're going to say, hey, we're going to have a pre-employment test, they're going to test that the employee doesn't have THC. If they have CBD or that equivalent of the marijuana, that's going to fly, and they're going to let them come in. But what's important to know is that there has to be a legislation so that employers can really make educated decisions on a better and more sophisticated testing for marijuana. That truly is, I think, the key, because whether you're for it or on it or off it, regardless of where you live in that world, employers have the right to protect and the duty to protect other employees. So people under the influence might make decisions that put others at risk. And that truly is the sticky point.
Well, I know that we're just scratching the surface here, and I got to tell you, this is a lot to unpack and absorb. And is there a listing? Does your organization provide a listing of the new laws that are going to take place in 2023? Is there a website? Where would I go for more information and possibly even talk to you about some of these topics?
Thank you very much for asking. So we do provide a list of the upcoming laws that will affect our industries. In addition, once or twice a year, we will provide a webinar, and we'll be more than happy to extend it to those who reach out. But in essence, we go over the laws in more detail. And then we circle back with those that have specific questions for their specific situation in their specific business life cycle. Because there are laws that apply to employers that have 5 employees, 10 employees, 15, 20, 100, etc. So, and then for some employees, there are portions of those that apply and or not. So to answer your question, yes, we can provide a listing that gives you sort of like the cliff notes of what's coming. And then we can absolutely invite those that want to have a nice cup of coffee and listen and don't kill the messenger, because the laws sometimes are not the most favorable to employers. So yes, we can do that.
Well, great. I'll list a link in our show notes, and so people can get that information. This is a great time to wrap up our conversation. But again, any final tips, any final thoughts, and I am repeating myself, thank you so much for accepting my invitation to speak today as part of our Women Business and Wellness Conference.
Well, I really appreciate you having me. And I think that we have the power of community, and teaching others what we know is a good way to move forward. And I would love to always help. I think that you plant the seed and you expect things to grow. So this is a good way to put it out there in the universe. I'm very grateful for you having me.
Thank you for joining us for the 7th Annual Women Business and Wellness Online Experience. Once again, thank you to our sponsors: Wells Fargo Bank, Synchrony, Union Bank, the Southwest Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and Bank of America. Remember to visit our website, HispanicLifestyle.com, for more information on our upcoming events and online series. Until next time, stay safe and healthy. Bye for now.